Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received, and the translation of that message reads like this. Hello, Brother Nanshi, how are you? Can you please post my own story as anonymous? So, I was once involved in a polygamous marriage, and that is how I became a ritualist. I did not know that my maid was a granddaughter of a big witch from Zaka. I did not know that she was the devil himself. I met my second wife after a particular trip that I had taken going to Masvingo, and I had been sent there by my boss. So I had driven from Harare and I had gone to Masvingo. When I met my second wife, she was desperate at that time. She was confused. She did not know where to go. So I had traveled to Masvingo. It was a business trip, and there were some books that we needed to audit for this other company and the financials as well. Whenever I would go to that company to audit their financials, my boss used to book me at this other guest house. There was a day when I was feeling tired. I just wanted to go and find some food, not the food that I was being given at that guest house. I wanted something from town. So I went to town. That was when I met my future wife. She was desperate the day that I met her. When I saw her, she was crying. I approached her. The reason as to why I approached her, because she was quite a beautiful woman. I said, this girl, she is all by herself and she is crying. Someone might take advantage of her. Let me go and talk with her. We started talking, and then she told me that she had been mistreated so much that she could not take it anymore by her stepmother, and she had decided to leave. But after she had left, she did not know where to go to from now. Because of her age, and I was into light-skinned women, I said, this one, I am going to marry her. She's so beautiful and young. She can make a very good wife. As I was speaking with her, proposing love to her, I really did not know where I was going to take her to, because in Harare, I was staying with my wife, and I did not have any money to find a room for her so that she can stay at whatever place where she would be staying, whilst I am sorting myself out so that I can take her as my second wife. All that mattered at that time was that I was supposed to convince her to go with me to the guest house where I was staying, and from there on to convince her so that she can allow me to take her with me back to Harare. And when we are in Harare, I was going to make other plans. We agreed. We went to the guest house where I was staying. We slept together. When I was in Harare, that was when I told her that I had a wife. And she cried and she said, now I am regretting. I was not supposed to sleep with you. But now look at the mistake that I have made. I am now even more desperate than I was when I was still back home in Masvingo. Whilst we were still in Harare, that was when an idea came to my mind. I sat with her down and I said, I want to marry you, but the challenge that I am facing right now, financially, I cannot afford to get you accommodation, but I can bring you to my house. He was like, how? I said, you can pretend as if you are my maid, and then you can start working for my wife whilst we are staying together. You just need to know that once I have money, then I'll move you out of our house and I would find another accommodation somewhere else. She was okay with the plan, because at that time, with the little money that I had, I was booking for her at this other guest house. What I would do is that in the morning when I would wake up going to work, I would pass through that guest house, give her some money so that she can get some food to eat. In the evening as well, before I would return back home, I would go to that guest house to be with her just for a short period of time. So she said, it is fine. As long as your wife is going to respect me, as long as she is not going to mistreat me, then I will be able to work for her, even though I will know that you are our husband, even though she won't know that this is what is taking place in her home. She stayed in that guest house for about 2 weeks. She kept on complaining almost each and every day. She was like, I know it is too early from the day that we started sleeping together, but the way that I am feeling, I think I'm pregnant. I then realized that if this woman was already pregnant, I was supposed to move as fast as possible. I then spoke with my elder sister, the one that loves me a lot, and I told her the situation, and I said that there was this other girl that I had impregnated, and I could not afford to get her own space to live. The only way was for her to come and live with my wife, but I did not want my wife to know because she was never going to agree. She would only agree if she was a maid, and we had to make a plan for this girl to be brought into my home as a maid, even though we would be staying as husband and wife, keeping it as a secret from my wife. And my sister agreed and said that she was going to help me. She was going to try by all means to make sure that I could get this woman to stay with me, and we were going to keep it as a secret from my wife. Me and my wife, we were having a very big challenge because my wife, she grew up in that environment where she witnessed and she saw her mother mistreating the women that were working for them as maids. So she thought that to mistreat a maid, it is something that is normal. So what would happen is that we would hire a maid. After that, my wife will start to mistreat the woman that will be working for us, not giving the maid food, always making sure that she was working, never resting. So there were maids that would come and work for us within a very short period of time. They will stop working for us. So I knew that we were in need of a maid. And then we started talking, me and my wife, about hiring another maid. And my sister, she pretended as if she knew this girl that was desperate, but who was going to be my wife, and she was looking for a job. She spoke with my wife, and my wife was like, I don't know, but okay, it is fine. That girl was brought into our home, and we continued dating. But my wife kept on saying that she wanted the reference at the place where she used to work. This is what we did. I went into town one day, and then I bought a SIM card, and I gave it to my sister, and I told my sister that she was supposed to give it to one of her friends whom my wife did not even know, and then we will pretend as if she was the woman whom my young wife used to work for. After my wife had spoken with my sister's friend, she got excited and she was happy, and she said, at least I have a reference. It seems as if this maid of ours is going to work for us for a very long time. Me and my young wife, we kept on sleeping together as she was pretending as if she was our maid, until the day when my wife found out that she was pregnant, and she was pregnant for me. She threatened me. The problem was that my wife, she came from a wealthy family, and me getting a job, it was simply because my wife's father was the one that had given me the opportunity. And whenever we would fight, then my wife would go and report me to her father. Sometimes I would even get fired from work since he knew a lot of people. And I knew that since she wanted to tell her father that I had impregnated another woman and that woman was staying with us, it was going to be a very big problem for me. I was really desperate at that time. So I spoke with my young wife and I said, do you know anyone that can help us spiritually so that my wife can just accept you as the second wife? Whilst me and my wife, my first wife, we were busy fighting, as I was trying to convince her that she was not supposed to tell her parents yet. That was when I had a weird dream. When I was having this weird dream, I saw my young wife. I did not know that she was a witch and she had the spirits of the mermaids. She came to me. She was very beautiful with long hair. She had a bright necklace. She came to me and she was holding a big knife, and she said, I want you to take this knife so that you can hurt your wife. When she will be giving me that knife, I would then see my wife again in my dream, and she will be crying. She will be like, oh, dear husband, so you have trusted your second wife more than me. Why have you chosen to do this? Why do you want to use this knife that she has given you so that you can kill me? That was the dream that I used to have. And after my wife had gotten so sick, that was when she told me that she was a witch and she was the one who was making my wife to get so sick. The day that my first wife decided that she was going to call her father so that we can talk about that issue, I was scared that I was going to get fired because I was working for her father's best friend, a man that listened to her father more than me. And I then spoke with my second wife and I said, so what are we supposed to do here? Because if I get fired, I will never be able to take care of you. That was when she said, it is okay. I can speak with my grandmother. She said that she had her grandmother who was in Zaka. From that day, that was when I started respecting people that do come from Zaka, because those people, they know what is witchcraft. The things that I witnessed when we were going to see a grandmother, they were like out of a horror movie. We traveled, me and him, we traveled, and then we went to Zaka because she said, do not even worry. If we leave the house, your wife is going to get mad. Your father-in-law is going to get mad. But once we get to my grandmother's house, everything is going to be sorted out. We drove until we arrived at this other shopping center. Now we were in Zaka, in the village where her grandmother, the Queen of Witches, was staying. When she was busy directing me, because now I did not know where exactly we were headed to, and we were using these small gravel roads. So we stopped the vehicle, and then she started giving me directions, and she said, there, can you see over there? That is where my grandmother's house is. We just need to go there. So when we were talking, that was when I saw an owl. It flew, and then it rested on the bonnet of the car. I panicked and I got scared. She laughed and she said, do not be afraid, for now I know that my grandmother has sent one of her birds to spy on us, and now she knows that we are in the village. She has already woken up and she is busy preparing the things that she is going to use. She knows why we are here. You are going to see but that by the time that we arrived at her homestead, she will already be waiting for us. This is what happened, Brother Nashi. Even though I was shaking and nervous, she tried to calm me down, saying that I should not worry, for I was now in a safe place. That owl that had landed on the bonnet when we were parked, as she was giving me some directions, that owl, it was following us. I would drive maybe for about 1 kilometer. Then I would see that owl resting in a tree. When we would approach that place where it will be resting in the tree, then it will fly and wait for us again at the next stop until finally we arrived at her grandmother's homestead. I saw that owl again. When we arrived at her grandmother's homestead, it was quite scary. She had surrounded her house with these big trees, such that it was really dark and scary. It was like she had built her house in the middle of the forest. What scared me the most about that owl is that when it finally landed on this other tree, after we had arrived at her grandmother's homestead, that was when it transformed itself and it became like a cat. That was quite shocking for me. Her grandmother, like she had told me when we first saw that owl at the shopping center, was already waiting for us. So she said that she was going to prepare a meal for us. After she had prepared a meal for us, we sat down and we ate. And it was only soft porridge, without any meat, without any vegetables. It was only soft porridge. I asked her and she said, that is the rule. When you arrive at your grandmother's place after the sun has gone down, she will prepare a meal for you and you have to eat the pap, the soft porridge, with no vegetables or any meat, just the soft porridge alone. After we had finished eating, that was when she said, follow me. Me and my young wife, we walked behind her grandmother as we were following her. I had no idea where we were headed to. We finally arrived at this other grave, and there was a huge anthill on top of that grave. She knelt down as she was pouring some tobacco onto the ground as she started speaking. It turned out that the grave at the place where we were, it was the grave of my second wife's mother. As she was performing all of those rituals, that was when I started to respect people that do come from Zaka. Those people, they are very powerful. I saw fire that was burning on top of the grave. Who had started this fire? I had no idea. All that I saw that was burning on top of my second wife's mother's grave. She then said that it was done, and she got up on her feet and she said, follow me back to the house. We walked as we were headed for her kitchen. When we arrived at the kitchen, that was when my second wife said, turn around and see. When I looked, I saw that there was a big hyena, as if it had been protecting us and following us as well. I was shocked, for in my entire life, I had never seen such a hyena that was as big as a horse. We then sat down, and then she said, Let us talk. Let us have a conversation. Tell me, why are you at my house? What do you want from me? Why did you come almost in the middle of the night? And then she laughed at me and she said, I knew that you would come. And I knew that this was going to happen. You impregnated my granddaughter. According to our Shona custom, what were you supposed to do? You were supposed to come here to inform us as a family that this is what you have done. You have impregnated my granddaughter and you were supposed to pay. But you did not do that. When things were okay for you, you never even thought about doing such a thing, did you? But I knew that one day you will come in the middle of the night crying so that I can assist you. Tell me, why are you here? I was so nervous. I did not even know what to do. I could not even answer her. That was when she started singing softly and then she started punching the floor. It was quite scary when she started doing that. She was punching the floor as she was cursing my wife. She was like, this wife of yours, she meant my first wife. Does she know who I am? Does she know who am I? This wife of yours, she thinks that I am a small child. Why has she done this to my granddaughter? Does she know who I am? As she was punching the floor, it was quite scary when she was doing that. After she had grown tired of just punching the floor, that was when we went to bed. When me and my second wife were about to sleep, we kept on hearing that outside, that sound that we had heard in the kitchen as her grandmother was busy punching the floor. It never stopped. There was one who continued punching and punching and punching the floor, and that person sounded so angry. I then asked my wife what was taking place. That was when my second wife told me that my first wife, was going to die, and after she would have died, then what would happen is that her spirit would never be able to rise up again to fight against her or her grandmother or me ever again. I was scared and I did not know what else to do, because when we were still in the kitchen, she had given me 4 leaves that I was supposed to use. I went outside even though I was feeling nervous because it was really dark. I knelt down and I started to call my wife's name. I said, Joyce, 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 4 times as I was calling her spirit, because that was the instruction that I had been given by my second wife's grandmother. She said, once you call her spirit, and when her spirit has arrived at this place, I know what I am going to do with her. All that you have to do is to call her spirit, and that was what I did. She had also given me a knife. She said to me, take this knife. When you go back to the city with my granddaughter, keep this knife, and you are only going to return back with this knife when the time is right. I want you to bring back this knife to me. She had told me that when my wife one day will tell me that she is not okay, she is feeling sick, I was supposed to get into my car and drive back to Mashwengo, to Zaka, so that I can give her back the knife. When me and my second wife were in our spare bedroom that her grandmother had given us, that was when she said, my husband, I have something that I need to share with you. I said, you can tell me why, my wife. And then she said, when I was still young, my grandmother made me to become a witch. I don't know if you'll be able to accept me as a witch, for I am a witch. I was really scared with everything that had happened. All the spiritual encounters that I had had on that night, it was just too much for me. So in my mind, I said, if this woman, if I show her that I do not love her because she is a witch, she is going to call some other witches from this village and they are going to feast on my flesh tonight. They are going to kill me. I cannot let her do that. Let me just tell her that I love her. I then told her that I loved her even though she was a witch. That was when she said, okay, now that you have said that you love me, you need to know that you and I, we are supposed to have a spiritual covenant, so that if it ever happens that some of my sisters who are witches, if they say that I am supposed to offer you as a sacrifice so that we can feast upon your flesh, I won't allow that to happen, because you and I, we would have created a covenant in the spirit. If they sacrifice you, then they would have to sacrifice me as well. And one thing that I have learned about my wife, even though she's a witch, like a real witch, but she does not want people to know that she is a witch. As for now, my wife, she acts as if she is a traditional healer. She does assist some other people, but in reality, she is just a witch. After I had convinced her that I was in love with her so much, that was when she said, okay, my love, let us fall fast asleep. We will talk about it. That was when I said, but I want to sleep with you like now. Let us have sex. And she said, no, let us not do it in the physical world. I am going to appear in your dreams and we are going to have that spiritual covenant by having sex in your dreams. She told me that she wanted to reveal her true nature to me on that night in my dreams so that I can know what she looks like when she goes out as a witch. She got up from the bed and she went and she opened her bag. She took out a book and she said, this is what my grandmother gave to me. This is where my power comes from. It was given to me by my grandmother and I use it whenever I want to go and bewitch someone. She said, my love, I want you to fall asleep whilst you are holding this book so that you and we can have a connection. And then she started kissing me and I started to feel sleepy whilst I was holding that book. The moment that I fell asleep, that was when I saw a snake. It is very difficult and I know other people are going to get confused when I say that I saw a beautiful snake. I saw a female snake that was so beautiful. Immediately I knew it was my wife. That snake ate the breast of a woman as well as the private parts of a woman, and I knew that it was my wife. She then said to me, my husband, oh dear husband, it is I, your wife. It is I, your second wife. I want to ask you a simple question. And I said, go ahead. And that was when she said, do you accept me the way that I am right now in your dreams? And I said, yes, my wife, I do accept you the way that you are. After I had told her that I accepted her the way that she was, I saw that her limbs were growing. She now had hands as well as legs, and then she started transforming herself and she became a normal human being, the normal woman that I knew. She was wearing such a beautiful wig like I had never seen before. It was so long, so much that it reached the floor. And then she said, my husband, there is a ritual that you and we are going to perform. And this ritual, it is going to tie your soul to my soul. I am going to be you and you are going to be me. We are going to become one flesh. This I have to do so as to protect you from other witches. We then started making love. Me and my wife in my dreams, we made love like we had never made love before. So in the heat of the moment, she was so passionate and she was enjoying the love making. And then she transformed back. She lost control and she became a snake. She jumped on top of me and then she started making love to me as a snake. It was so painful, so much that I could not stand it anymore. Even the next morning when I went to urinate, that was when I saw that there was only blood that was coming out, because at that moment when that snake was inserting my private part into its own private part, it was the most painful thing that had ever happened to me. When we were still talking, me and my second wife, that was when my father-in-law called me and he said that I was supposed to return back home, for they were not angry. They were not angry at all. Me and my second wife, we then drove back to Harare and my first wife accepted my second wife. When we arrived in Harare, I bought a dress which I was supposed to give to my first wife and I was supposed to sleep with her whilst she would be wearing that dress. This was going to make her become sick later on. What my wife did not know was that when I was busy touching her, kissing her, after I had given her the dress to wear and told her that I wanted to sleep with her whilst she would be wearing that dress, I had taken that knife that my second wife, grandmother, had given to me and I had pushed it into the mattress. This was what I had been told. Even in the morning when we woke up, I saw that there were blood stains on her pillow. I showed it to her. When she tried to get out of bed, she could not. She was shaking. She was so weak. Before I had left my wife at the clinic, then driving off to Masvingo, she lost about 9 liters of blood because I took this small bucket, which was a 9-liter bucket, and then I placed it in front of her because she kept on bleeding, and she was really weak. I informed her relatives, dropped her off at the clinic, then off I went to return back that knife. She took that knife from me, then she went to that grave where she had performed the rituals the previous night, and then she stabbed that grave with the knife that I had used when I was sleeping with my wife when it was underneath the mattress. There was no way that my first wife, was ever going to survive. She never came out of the hospital because my second wife, I would even witness her performing rituals, casting spells and curses on my first wife, but I said nothing until she passed away. My second wife, after the death of my first wife, she started mistreating my kids, which was like hurting me a lot because that was not what we had agreed to do. But she said, I am protecting you, after she had kicked my kids out of my house, because when she went with me again to her grandmother, that was when I was given some charms that I do use in my business. So I had to sleep with my daughters. So she said, you cannot perform these rituals because your daughters, they are still young. You can get arrested, because it was supposed to be done physically. We returned back to Harare, and then she helped me with those charms. Now what happens is that I sleep with my daughters, but only in their dreams. My wife is a witch and I am a ritualist. It's not like we are filthy rich, but at least we can afford a very good life. That is how I became a ritualist. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our brother. That was the translation of the message that he sent to me. Strange things indeed, they do happen in this world.